So welcome to the third part of our podcast, which we've titled Enterprise Monetization in the Modern Economy. And I'd like to welcome Lee Veron, Senior Analyst from the Forrester Group. In the first two chapters, we really spoke about defining monetization and complexity and anything as a service, or the service, the trend towards selling services rather than products. Mm-hmm. We then moved on to looking at market trends. So what do you see as Forrester in terms of trends within the market and movements and change? Well, now what we're really going to talk about is what are the obstacles and challenges to optimizing and automating these order to cash drivers and these objectives. Some of the areas that we've seen in terms of challenges is this pressure between the business model evolution and the landscape transformation. So, how do we marry that as a business? And we spoke about that earlier, in terms of this concept of, it probably doesn't make sense for a business to wait for the landscape to change to be able to evolve, to cater for business model change and business model requirements and customer demand and revenue opportunities. So going back one step further, we spoke about this timeline of business model and revenue streams, and the fact that businesses are constantly evolving, and the concept of simplification is probably elusive, mm-hmm. and automation of complexity. It's a pipe dream. Yeah. So what we need to do is to cater for 100% of our business and to look to automate to be able to drive that revenue scale that we need, and also these opportunities in terms of improving our cash position and reducing our cost of doing business. So that's kind of what we've covered, I guess. Mm-hmm. But for now, I think what would be really useful to kick off on is to look at the, I think you have a vendor survey, don't you, in terms of the analysis around some of these challenges. Do you want to talk to that for a sec?
Yeah, so I track probably 40 plus vendors in this space. It's a big space. Yeah. And I was really, curious about, okay, I have my perception of the disruptors, the challenges, the trends in the market. I know from my customers on the buyer side what they think. Yeah. What are the vendors thinking, and what are they looking out for in the times to come? And it's beautifully aligned. So what we saw is that vendors in the space, the suppliers, are saying, hey, this fragmentation of business models, this diversification of business models, this need to monetize in many ways and in various flavors, and to change upon it, is the core challenge. That is the core challenge in this space today, is managing the many flavors of monetization strategy, right? Executing on that. And then the other piece that was a key challenge was this, this kind of pressure of unifying on a suite, right? Buying more modules from one vendor and unifying on one data model, and the kind of automation possibilities that opens up. But the vendor risk, the risk that opens up as well. And so this challenge of, you've got the desire for the unifying data, mitigating integration challenges, et cetera, but the reality of our technology strategy often doesn't either allow us to go all in with one vendor, or maybe it doesn't make sense, right? Because that's a lot of eggs in one basket. So that's the other piece here, is this challenge of the to use the overused terms in software, is the best of breed or one throat to choke, right? Yeah. That one I hate. I need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we need it, definitely.
We need a new one. But this idea of, there's a lot of change in the technology landscape and the provider landscape, and it is causing a lot of kind of analysis paralysis and a little bit of that paradox of choice. You know the paradox of choice?
I do,
right?
Yeah.
This idea of, like, if you have more than 6 options, you are less satisfied with the choice you make, no matter which choice you make, right? Yeah. Like it takes longer for you to decide, and you're less satisfied. And that's what's happening. Tech is in a tough spot. There's a lot of pressure to grow and to save money. I mean, those things are sometimes at odds, as you and I have talked about this. When you have buyers having to justify every penny of spend, getting them to sign with you is a huge win. It is a huge sign of trust. And so you've got vendors of two minds. And this is a tip for the buyers, is that, you want to find someone who's aligned with your point of view in the market. But half of the landscape seems to feel like, we're battening down the hatches. We need to be more conservative, more cost-centric, more cost savings oriented. This is the time to batten down the hatches. The other one says innovation is, what's the scarcity is the mother of innovation or something, right? Yeah. That idea of like, this is the time to try new things. We cannot do the things the way we always have, right? And this is the time to make new choices. Brilliant. So that to me are the kind of key pressures and opportunities that the vendors are tapping into.
Yeah, fascinating. The other, and this might move into a therapy session. So
I'm here for it. Yeah. How does that make you feel,
exactly.
Robin?
Yes. One of the challenges we find, right, is that the problem can sit in so many different places. So the responsibility of solving the problem within a business. Yep. So in some instances, it often rolls up to finance, doesn't it? So I guess ultimately, Office of the CFO is probably always going to be interested, right? Mm-hmm. But the acceptance of the responsibility of solving the challenge can sit in different pockets within a business. So for us as cloud or SaaS solution vendors, we often find that our ideal process is to find within that organization whoever understands and has responsibility for the challenge. And then to understand the business first. So I have a very simplistic view to this, which is business first, business model first, revenue streams come out of that, and then how technology can resolve some of those challenges then is the final piece. So we want to understand the business process, and then ultimately we kind of look at a demonstration cycle as a real confirmation of an understanding of a business process. And how that process could change over time. So that ability to move from where a company is today to some other future state, and then the final piece, which happens to be the last chapter of this discussion, the value of that difference over time. Mm-hmm. So we get into the weeds. We like to understand business process first. The big challenge we have, and I'm being as verbose as I can about this, the big challenge we have is finding who within the organization owns the problem. Yeah. What's your experience of that?
Yeah, that is the problem. There's the business problems that we're trying to solve are multidisciplinary. Mm. It's how do we go to market faster? How are we more resilient to change, or to disruption? Sometimes it's these big problems. It's like, what is a best-in-class billing experience? Yeah. And I want to solve for that. Or it's like my CPQ calculates proration to the 10th decimal and my billing to my 8th, and now my invoices are wrong and I need to solve that, right? It goes from the micro to the macro, and who's feeling that business problem? It could be, true. I say this all the time. When billing goes right, almost no one cares. Billing teams celebrate, but almost no one else cares when billing goes right. Mm. When it goes wrong, it's the end of the world, and it's truly everybody's problem, right? And so, but you're absolutely right that the organization, what role and responsibility they have, it could be anywhere. It could be anyone, and it's we can segment as best as we can. Primarily CFO, as you say. There's definitely IT at the table, and sales is the next big one. Digital is the next big one. But beyond that, right, there's a long tail. So I feel for you. It's a very difficult time to be marketing and selling software applications in this category. Yeah. The last thing I'll say too, though, is directly to our buyer audience, or folks who are, users of this software. We get in our own way too. So oftentimes we will see, our organization and our just way of doing business sometimes puts these really hard guardrails around what problems we are allowed to solve and what problems, who we want to bring to the table. So that multidisciplinary problem suddenly only gets the attention of one discipline. So I often talk to an organization where they're like, oh, no, we can't bring digital into this. We can't bring CX into this. We can't bring XYZ organization into this because then the budget will come out of their budget and then we won't get that budget next year. So there's these internal politics around who can own what business problem. Sometimes actually, I think, get in the way of getting the best possible solution for it because of our own, internal rules about which team and how, which team can own what and how budgets work and how they get budgets next year. And that's an enterprise problem too, right? Because the bigger you are, the more departments you have, the more, impersonal sort of these budget allocations become.
And is that political bureaucracy or is it practical sometimes?
I think it's both. Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, sometimes there's scarred tissue of projects that have gone awry in the past, and that's what's informing it. And sometimes it's purely, this is the way it's always been.
What are you seeing in terms of the different, I hate the cliche, right? But the different pain points or the different, let's use a softer word, challenges that are found in each of these different areas. So I'll just give you my view, which is, if it's office of the CIO, the technical requirement to change has often already been made. And then there's a task around finding solutions within the context of a broader landscape change, often. If it's office of CRO, it might be revenue model change. And I'll give you an example. So we had a discussion recently with a company who had a new revenue opportunity. They're a B2B2C organization, and at the end game, they had an opportunity to grow their customer base at the C side of the equation by 30,000 odd customers. But their systems were not able to cater for the change. So it started in actually office of the CRO with the idea to add these different revenue streams in. And then suddenly everybody got involved, but it was given to a task force to find a solution set. What is your view in terms of the different pains, just at a high level within each of these different personas?
Absolutely. Well, I think with the finance organization, it's often they've got compliance to deal. They've got pressures to shift. Especially recently, it's like, okay, ASC 606 is a thing now. I've got to be compliant. Or it is, oh God, I'm spending all the blood, sweat, and tears of my organization because sales is running off doing crazy things that they really shouldn't do. And so my team then is responsible for kind of clamping down on this stuff and putting more controls or whatever, right? Or then it's as we talked about before, kind of chasing these unpaid invoices or correcting and being Sherlock Holmesing, of the problems that come up. And so there's all these operations I think the finance team really cares about, in addition to the compliance pieces and performance pieces that they're under pressure to deliver accurately, right? That's also when folks are about to IPO. Get the books in order, right? That's the other piece there. For the sales side, it is clamping down on revenue leakage. It is about growth. It is about enabling, not being hampered by the support, the IT department or the finance department that wants to put, controls on you, and you want to be able to do anything that, feels right for your product or your customer account. I think it's having better insights as well about the state of the customer account, and so it informs those next best steps. I think the IT department is also interested in compliance. Certainly, data security has been huge, right? In making sure that different parts of the organization, that those walled gardens are exactly where they should be and where they shouldn't be, right? Where you can capitalize on more data aggregation and management and visibility. The thing that I think comes up a lot, and as there are these big problems, these big visions. I want to be the best at this, or I want to solve, have the best billing customer experience or best sales customer experience. The problems that we see are as big as that, right? That, I want to provide the best billing experience that customers expect. What is that, dear Forrester, right? Dear vendor, they're also looking for that. And sometimes it's my bill due amount doesn't update at the end, when the payment has gone through until the end of the billing cycle, and I'm getting drowned, like I'm drowning in calls to my call center or to my customer or my sales reps, or I'm having to pay. In this case, it was a B2C business where the customer is paying and doesn't see the balance due shift. Even they say thank you for your payment. They do, this balance due doesn't shift. The customer pays again. Customer pays again. Customer pays again. Then the billing cycle ends. They get charged 4 times. Yeah. And the company here has to pay sort of processing fees one way and then issue credits, right? Or get chargebacks. And this takes us into the realm of payment strategy as well. But it is, they might have these point problems, and that can be business, that could be sales, that could be customer experience, but it could also be finance, because they're like, why are we spending all of this unnecessary money to issue these credits and manage these credits, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an example of, the different domains certainly have different flavors of problems, but the problem itself may be surfaced. It touches all of those disciplines, but it may be surfaced by one of those entities. So it's an impossible problem to solve. Yeah, truly.
Yeah, it's interesting, absolutely. And then you find, so for example, if you look at what we were talking about earlier, which is this concept of days sales outstanding on its own, and you break it up into its components, and you say, well, on the collections piece, there might be various terms, and those terms might have various incentives. But something as simple as getting your billing wrong, in essence, is giving free payment terms. So if you're a customer and you find a problem on an invoice, and I'm not saying everybody would do this, but let's say on a 30-day term, you wait till day 29 before you highlight the fact that the invoice is incorrect, and then it gets reissued. You're probably giving yourself 30 to maybe 45 days of free extensions on the payment term. So often that challenge obviously sits within finance in terms of the cash position, etc., and from a collections point of view. But equally, then billing team have got to fix the problem, so they own the issue itself, and so it can be pervasive across various teams, and that's just one example.
Right. Yeah. There's the other thing that we talked about, kind of this overcorrection to APIs and this kind of the techification of this category, which is exciting. It's the usefulness and the modernization of this category is that's what we're here to talk about. But we also have to recognize, as we do with the integration modes, that billing happens in many different ways, and the data might be best integrated or ingested in different formats. The truth is also about the administration and the tools themselves. So I've often talked to folks on the billing side of things who are, if I'm talking to an IT or a developer or an engineer who's thinking about this, they're like, who has the best documentation? Who has the clearest kind of developer tools? Like, I want my job to be easy. Like, I don't want, I still have job security. There's no way, but I want somebody whose help, service is contextual to my moment of need. I want the documentation to be easy and clear to navigate. I want the API explorers, et cetera, to be top notch. But when you talk to a billing person, usually they don't know JSON, they don't know how to code, and they don't often have a huge pull with the precious developer resources at an organization. And so they're often looking for I speak Excel. How can you make, the importation, for example, if I import a formula for this particular rule, can I just set it up in Excel and you just understand it? Yeah. Right? Like, how can we make the tools, developer centricity is something that's obviously hot right now. We want, the developer has a key seat at the table now. We talk about sort of the different parts of the C-suite that are there making the decision, but the people whose sleeves are rolled up working on this also have a seat at the table. But let's not ignore the non-technical practitioner.
Yeah.
Right? The person whose job is to use the system. How do we mitigate the learning curve for them and the time to value? And one of those ways is in, again, UI.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll use that as a dovetail into the final chapter of this, what's been a fantastic discussion. So thank you, which is looking at the value. So this concept of enterprise monetization in the modern economy, what does it really mean in terms of the endpoint and the value over time of making the change? So thank you, Lily. I think that was really interesting in terms of looking at some of these challenges and some of these obstacles. But there has to be a value proposition in terms of making the change. So that's what we'll cover in the next section.
Looking forward to it.